My name is Vivian Ashcroft. I'm 38 years old. And I discovered the truth on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Looking back now, I realize the signs had been there for weeks. My boyfriend, Nathan Thornton, 35, had been acting strangely. Secret phone calls, random appointments, Saturdays when he suddenly disappeared for hours. I honestly thought he was planning something romantic. Instead, he was planning a future that didn't include me. We had been together for 2 years. I believed we were building something stable. Nathan always talked about how much he loved our peaceful life. Movie nights, weekend brunches, long conversations before bed. At least that's what I thought. That night, we were eating takeout on the couch when he suddenly put down his fork. Vivienne, I need to tell you something. His voice sounded nervous. I smiled. You're scaring me. He took a deep breath. I've been freezing embryos with Vanessa's eggs. I blinked. What? My ex-fiancée. The room went silent. Vanessa, the woman he had dated for 7 years before meeting me. The woman he always described as ancient history. I slowly set down my chopsticks. Embryos with your ex. Yes. He spoke as if he were discussing taxes. I needed a backup plan. A backup plan. He nodded. You know, doctors once told you pregnancy might be difficult. What if things don't work out between us? I'm 35. I can't waste time. I stared at him. We've been together for 2 years. Exactly. Only 2 years. 7 years with Vanessa apparently mattered more. Then he smiled. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Proud. Vanessa's genetics are proven, he said casually. Her nieces are brilliant. Her whole family is healthy. Something inside me quietly cracked. I picked up my glass of water. Interesting choice. His shoulders relaxed immediately. I knew you'd understand. He actually looked relieved. You're always so rational. Vivienne. This is just insurance. Emotional insurance. I asked one question. How many embryos? 12. 12. How long has this been happening? 3 months. 3 months. 3 months of fake work meetings. 3 months of Saturdays that supposedly belong to fitness retreats. 3 months of lies. Then, he added something even worse. Vanessa knows exactly what they're for. She's excited. Excited. My boyfriend and his ex were creating potential children together behind my back. And somehow, I was expected to applaud. They're just cells. Nathan said, when I remained silent. Cells. Potential lives he planned to use only if our relationship failed. So, you're not planning to leave me? I said softly. He smiled. Of course not. But you're preparing for when you do. He rolled his eyes. Every smart person has a backup plan. I finished dinner without another word. Meanwhile, Nathan happily explained how wonderful the clinic staff were. He even showed me photographs, documents, 12 embryos frozen in storage. That night, while he slept beside me peacefully, I stared at the ceiling. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how normal he thought all of this was. Around 3 in the morning, I made my own appointment at the same fertility clinic. Not because I wanted answers. Because I suddenly needed to understand the kind of world I had apparently been living in. The following week, I arrived at the clinic. Dr. Hendricks greeted me kindly. But it was the receptionist who caught my attention. His name was Adrian Brooks. Tall, calm, warm smile, professional. He handled my paperwork, while carefully avoiding asking questions. But when he saw Nathan's name connected to my file, I noticed something strange. His eyebrow moved. Just slightly. Almost an involuntary reaction. Complicated situation, he asked gently. I laughed bitterly. You could say that. He hesitated, then quietly said something unexpected. Doctor Hendricks sees many unusual cases. He paused. But your boyfriend's case was memorable. I looked up. What do you mean? Adrian immediately looked uncomfortable. I probably shouldn't say anything. But his expression had already told me enough. Something else had happened. Something I didn't know yet. And for the first time since Nathan's confession, I felt something stronger than heartbreak. I felt curiosity, because suddenly, I had the terrifying feeling that the truth was much worse than I imagined. A few days later, I learned exactly what Adrian had meant. Nathan stopped hiding things. In fact, he became strangely comfortable. Vanessa started visiting our apartment regularly. The first time she walked through my front door, carrying a bottle of wine, and calling Nathan Nate with that familiar tone only former lovers have. I thought I was hallucinating. Nathan introduced her with a smile. Vivienne. I think of Vanessa as extended family. Extended family. Right. Apparently, women who create embryos with your boyfriend qualified as family now. The two of them sat on my couch, discussing storage facilities while drinking my wine. I sat across from them feeling like a guest in my own home. Then, things became even more surreal. One evening, Nathan looked excited. We've been thinking about names. I nearly choked on my tea. Names. For hypothetical children that didn't even exist yet. Vanessa laughed softly. If it's a boy, Nathan Jr. would be adorable. Nathan grinned. And if it's a girl, maybe Charlotte, after my grandmother. They looked at each other with that familiar intimacy couples develop after years together. Then Nathan turned toward me. What do you think? As though I was part of the discussion. As though I might someday help raise children created by him and another woman. I smiled politely. I think Charlotte sounds lovely. Vanessa beamed. See, I told you she'd understand. Understand. That word again. Everyone seemed amazed that I wasn't screaming. But screaming would have changed nothing. By then, something inside me had already detached. 2 days later, I happened to stop by the clinic again for paperwork. Adrian recognized me immediately. Coffee break, he asked. His smile felt genuine. Safe. We walked to a small cafe across the street. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. Real laughter. Not the polite kind I had been forcing at home. Adrian listened without judgment while I carefully explained the bizarre situation. He nearly dropped his coffee. Wait, he said. He and his ex are planning children while living with you. Apparently, he shook his head. I've seen strange things working at that clinic. But that's impressive. Then his expression softened. You deserve better than being someone's temporary plan. Those words stayed with me. Because Nathan had unknowingly reduced me to exactly that. Temporary. As weeks passed, Adrian and I kept talking. Lunches became dinners. Dinners became long evening walks. I never crossed any boundaries while still living with Nathan. But emotionally, the relationship had already died. Meanwhile, Nathan and Vanessa grew increasingly obsessed with their embryos. One night, Nathan came home practically glowing. Vanessa and I have an idea. I immediately regretted hearing those words. What now? We want to hold a blessing ceremony. I stared. A what? A ceremony for the embryos. I laughed because I genuinely thought he was joking. He wasn't. Vanessa's mother's pastor agreed to do it. I blinked. You want a pastor to bless embryos you created with your ex while you're dating me? Nathan frowned. Why do you always make it sound strange? Because it was strange. Unbelievably strange. Then he smiled. You're invited. Of course. We want you to be part of this journey. Part of this journey. As if I was a supportive aunt. A week later, he proudly showed me the invitations. Gold lettering. Stock ultrasound images. The words, celebrating future possibilities. I almost admired the commitment to insanity. I'll think about it, I said calmly. Meanwhile, Adrian and I already had plans for that exact day. The ceremony happened on a Saturday. Nathan wore white. Vanessa wore white. Matching white outfits. I almost laughed when I saw them leaving the apartment together. You sure you can't come? Nathan asked. I have work. He looked disappointed. Vanessa's mother plans to live stream everything. How thoughtful. Instead, I spent the day with Adrian at a harvest festival. It was perfect. Pumpkins, apple cider, live music. For the first time in months, I felt peaceful. At sunset, he gently took my hand. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. Someone snapped a picture of us. Later, we posted several photos online. Nothing inappropriate, just two people smiling. Apparently, Nathan didn't notice immediately because he was busy attending his embryo blessing ceremony. But Vanessa's sister, Camille, certainly did. My phone exploded around mid-afternoon. Camille called. Nathan called. Even Vanessa called. I ignored them all. Adrian and I enjoyed dinner and stayed out late. When I finally returned home Sunday morning, I stopped cold. Nathan and Vanessa were sitting together on the couch, still wearing white. She had clearly been crying, and Nathan had his arm around her shoulders. The image looked less like former lovers and more like newlyweds after a difficult reception. Nathan stood up immediately. How could you? I blinked. Excuse me. How could you humiliate me during our ceremony? Our ceremony. Not his ceremony. Their ceremony. I repeated. You know what I mean. Vanessa wiped tears from her eyes. We saw the pictures. Pictures with Adrian. Nathan looked furious. You're dating the receptionist. I shrugged. We've been spending time together. You can't do that. I almost laughed. And why exactly not? Because he works at our clinic. Our clinic. Again, not his clinic. Not Vanessa's clinic. Their clinic. I folded my arms. The embryos have nothing to do with me. Remember, they're your backup plan. Nathan's anger slowly faded. Vanessa looked at him nervously, and then something unexpected happened. Nathan reached for her hand. Maybe he forgot I was still standing there. Maybe he simply didn't care anymore. But when their fingers intertwined, the truth finally stepped into the open. He looked at her softly. Maybe this is a sign, Vanessa whispered. I've been thinking the same thing. My chest tightened, not because I was heartbroken, but because suddenly everything made sense. The appointments, the lies, the matching outfits, the future baby names. They had never really let each other go. I wasn't the love story. I was the waiting room. Nathan turned back toward me, almost awkwardly, as if expecting me to understand. I smiled. A calm smile. Good. Both of them looked confused. Good, Nathan asked. Yes. I walked toward the bedroom. I'll help you pack. His face turned pale. And for the first time since all this madness began, Nathan finally looked afraid. Nathan moved out 3 days later. He moved straight into Vanessa's apartment. Honestly, I expected them to live happily ever after. After all, they finally had everything they wanted. Each other, their 12 embryos, their matching outfits, their grand romantic destiny. Meanwhile, my own life became strangely peaceful. Adrian and I officially started dating. There was no drama, no secret plans, no exes, no bizarre ceremonies. Just two adults who enjoyed spending time together, for the first time in years. Love felt easy. About a month later, Adrian sent me a text. Nathan had a follow-up appointment scheduled. So did Vanessa. Apparently, they had begun preparing for the possibility of using the embryos sooner than expected. How romantic. By pure coincidence, I happened to have paperwork to sign at the clinic that same afternoon. When I arrived, I spotted them immediately. Nathan, Vanessa, and Nathan's mother, Eleanor Thornton. Eleanor was carrying an enormous binder, labeled Future Grandchildren Planning. Tabs, sticky notes, color coding. The woman had turned hypothetical babies into a corporate project. Nathan froze when he saw me. Vanessa looked uncomfortable. Eleanor smiled politely. Oh, Vivian. Lovely seeing you. Nathan quickly interrupted. Mom. Things changed. Before she could ask what he meant, Adrian called Vanessa's name, professional, as always. But I noticed the tiny sparkle in his eyes. Miss Bennett, he said politely. There seems to be an issue with your account. Vanessa frowned. What issue? The embryo storage fees. Nathan stiffened. Adrian continued typing. According to our records, payments are significantly overdue. Vanessa slowly turned toward Nathan. I thought you were paying them. Nathan looked horrified. I paid the first month. You said you would handle the rest. No. You said we were splitting everything. The argument began immediately. Adrian calmly read the balance. $2,400 past due. Plus, this month's fees? The total hit like a bomb. Eleanor's expression changed. What exactly am I paying for? Silence. Nathan swallowed. Vanessa answered quietly. The embryos. Eleanor blinked. The embryos you created while living with another woman. Nobody answered. The waiting room became completely silent. Even strangers stopped pretending not to listen. Then Eleanor slowly closed her checkbook. The sound echoed through the room. I raised you better than this. Nathan looked devastated. Vanessa started crying. And then Eleanor walked out. Nathan chased after her. Vanessa remained standing alone. Adrian smiled professionally. Would you still like to proceed with your appointment? She burst into tears and left the clinic. Later that evening, Adrian and I had dinner together. We laughed about how strange life could be. But the story wasn't over. 2 weeks after moving in together, Nathan and Vanessa started fighting constantly. Without the excitement of secret appointments and forbidden dreams, they discovered something shocking. They actually had very little in common. Money became a problem. The storage fees became another problem. Arguments became daily events. Then came the final disaster. Their landlord eventually forced them out after neighbors complained about constant screaming. The fairy tale ended with eviction notices. 3 months later, Nathan and Vanessa had broken up. Again, the embryos remained frozen. But the biggest surprise came from Eleanor. Apparently, she paid the overdue fees. Not because she approved. Because she hired an attorney. She wanted to explore possible grandparent rights. Nathan and Vanessa suddenly found themselves united once again. Not beloved by lawyers. They were now fighting over custody issues involving children who technically didn't exist yet. When Adrian told me the news, I nearly spilled my coffee. You cannot be serious. I wish I were joking. He laughed. Life truly had become stranger than fiction. Then one evening, I received a text from Nathan. This is all your fault. I stared at the message. He actually blamed me. According to him, if I had simply supported his dream, none of this would have happened. I replied with 2 words. Interesting perspective. He sent 20 more messages. I never opened them. A few days later, Vanessa's sister Camille reached out. She apologized. Apparently, watching everything unfold had forced her to admit her sister needed help. According to Camille, Vanessa now described herself as a victim of fertility trauma. She told everyone that her dreams had been ruined by betrayal, conveniently leaving out the part where she and Nathan had spent months creating embryos behind my back. As for Dr. Hendricks, he retired shortly afterward. Adrian invited me to the retirement party. During his speech, the doctor talked about the unbelievable things he had witnessed during his career. He never mentioned names, but when he described matching white outfits and embryo blessings, the entire room burst into laughter. Even Dr. Hendricks laughed so hard he had to wipe away tears. Today, 6 months later, Adrian and I are happier than I ever imagined possible. We're moving in together next month. No drama. No backup plans. No exes involved in family planning. Just honesty. Sometimes I think about those 12 embryos sitting in storage while lawyers, former lovers, and angry mothers argue over their future. And honestly, I can't help laughing. Somewhere out there, a child named Nathan Jr. may never exist. And perhaps that's for the best. People often ask whether I regret everything that happened. I don't. Because losing Nathan forced me to see something important. Real love doesn't keep backups. Real love doesn't need matching outfits. And real love definitely doesn't invite your ex to create a family while asking your current partner to smile and be supportive. Last month, Nathan texted me one final time. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I looked over at Adrian, who was sitting beside me on the couch, while we argued about which breed of dog we should adopt. I smiled. Then, I deleted the message. Life is wild. But at least I never attended an embryo blessing ceremony wearing white